waiting because we think interest rates are going to come down. Well, that's what we think is going to happen, but what if we're wrong? What if they don't, right? If you're waiting because you're waiting on home prices to fall, well, unfortunately, interest rates have a whole lot better chance of coming down than home prices falling, and home prices so far haven't fallen either. And I feel like if they had fallen, they'd have probably fallen around the time interest rates hit 8.
Yes, absolutely.
So the takeaway is that you have to make decisions today based on needs today of your family, based on what you know to be true today.
Yeah. Hey guys, I'm Brandy Leiden, host and founder of Mom You're Not Alone. I have a really special guest here today, Corey Freels. He's with LTW Group, Fairway Mortgage. So Corey and I have done business together for a really long time. Followed him through I don't know how many companies. But so we are going to chat like just raw and real. Like, what does it look like in the real estate market? What's it look like as a lender? What are we seeing in the industry? So start us off, Corey.
Well, hey, thanks for having me.
Of course.
And I like to think we grew up together. And
Yeah, we did. We were babies.
Yeah.
Started.
Yeah, I was fresh to Knoxville and a year in when you started in real estate.
Yeah.
Maybe a year and a half when you started in real estate.
Yep.
So it's been fun to watch.
Yeah. Watch each other like grow and succeed and help support each other. It's been fun.
Yeah, it has been.
Yeah. So we want to get into conversation about just what does it look like in real estate right now. I mean, in the last 6 months, it's drastically changed. So as a buyer, it's hard. As a lender, as a realtor, like what's your forecast and what are y'all going after as far as getting people to get motivated to buy? Yeah.
I think it's been a really interesting, it will be 4 years in March since COVID. Isn't that hard to believe?
Yes.
So it's been a really interesting 4-year season of boom and bust and all the craziness that goes along with that. And I think you've had a lot of people, especially during the boom, that were left out of the market. They just couldn't get offers accepted. Were getting outbid. That needed a government loan or some loan that was less appealing to a seller at the time.
Yeah.
Didn't have cash for a long time. That was it. It was cash only.
Yeah.
That have since, in the last 1.5 to 2 years, we'll be 2 years into this higher interest rate cycle now in March.
Yeah.
Have now had an opportunity. But what's been interesting to me is behavior has held some consistent trends. And what I mean by that is there were a lot of people that couldn't compete in the market when it was really hot, who now had an opportunity to compete, but their behavior when the market was really hot, and perhaps by necessity, it's just the hand the market dealt, was, well, I'm just going to wait until this slows down.
Yes.
Right?
Till the prices drop, till the interest rates drop.
That's right.
And the reality is,
yeah, I mean, prices never did drop.
No.
I mean, we saw prices just continue to climb, and there's reasons for that. But then it shifted when interest rates came up. It was like, well, we're just going to wait on rates to come down. Well, that hasn't happened either.
Yeah.
And so there's been some similarity in behavior, but I think what I and what my team has seen a lot of recently is people that were waiting and on the fence for a long time have finally just thrown the towel in and like, we just can't wait. We need that third bedroom or we don't.
Yes.
We need the second or third bathroom or we don't.
Yeah. We had 2 babies since this house, and then now what? We're on top of each other, or working from home, whatever that it is. Yeah. Or now we're empty nesters and we have this 4,000 square foot house and it's just the 2 of us.
That's right.
And those people don't have to move. They don't need more space. But, could they downsize and be way happier? Absolutely. So talk strategy about how are you advising your buyers to interest rates are what they are. They may not drop in the next 3 months, 6 months, 9 months. Okay. Prices aren't going to drop. So how are you talking them through, like, let's get creative?
Yeah. Well, something we talked about before is I think that anytime you're making present day decisions based on what you hope happens in the future, you should throw a flag and look at yourself and look at look at why that is, right? So if we're waiting, some examples, if we're waiting because we think interest rates were going to come down, well, that's what we think is going to happen, but what if we're wrong? What if they don't, right?
Sure.
If you're waiting because you're waiting on home prices to fall, well, unfortunately, interest rates have a whole lot better chance of coming down than home prices falling, and home prices so far haven't fallen either. And I feel like if they had fallen, they'd have probably fallen around the time interest rates hit 8.
Yes, absolutely.
So I think that the takeaway is that you have to make present-day decisions. You have to make decisions today based on needs today of your family, based on what you know to be true today.
Yeah, no, that's true. And then we talked about, or we've talked about this in the past. So, okay, what happens when you've got, what's interest rates today?
Mid-sixes.
Okay, mid-sixes. So let's say we're 6.5. We're going to take a generic number, and the price is not going to drop. Competition isn't that bad right now, really. Like, you can probably make an offer and get it, and maybe get it with a loan that you couldn't have, like FHA or VA or whatever, right? And then maybe you can get an inspection accepted, whatever that it is. And so you do that, but let's say the buyer wants a $2,000 payment or $3,000 payment, whatever they're trying to stay under. If they've made enough equity in their house, and we talked about this, that they can consolidate some debt with that. And then, because they're thinking, oh, I don't want to move forward because it's going to be $3,500. I can't afford that. So take that $500, consolidate your debt, and reduce your payments by $500, and now you can afford it.
That's right.
Are you having those conversations?
We are. And I think what we've come to find is this is potentially a generational opportunity to eliminate ancillary debt. Because most of us who currently own a home and have for the past 3 years have substantial equity in our homes.
Right.
And so the only way to extract that equity from your house is to borrow against it or to sell it. And so what we found is in a lot of cases, once we do a buyer's consultation, so we have a full application in front of us, we've looked at a credit report, we do a true buyer's consultation, we're looking at your entire financial picture. We're looking at everything. We're not just looking at the house. We're not going to spit you an interest rate into payment. We're going to really dig in and say, hey, this is the home you're trying to move into, or the price point that you're trying to see. What's the most efficient way to get you into that house? And so we have seen in a lot of cases you could pay off a car. Student loans came back in repayment in October. That's been a big deal.
Yeah.
And so paying off student loans has been huge. Credit cards, home equity lines of credit. There's a lot of home equity lines of credit out there that were taken out when prime was 3.5%, and now prime's 8.5%, and those payments are really hurting people.
Yes.
And so you have this opportunity too to pay off that HELOC. And so what you're saying, a lot of times you could net either the same or a little better as far as cash flow goes. So yeah, your mortgage payment goes up $1,000, $1,200, but you're eliminating $1,200 to $1,500 to $2,000 worth of other debt that realistically you don't have a plan for, Right. I mean, there's big pieces of debt out there, home equity lines of credit, $50,000, $75,000, $100,000 that unless we inherit some money or we get a windfall from work, it's just not realistic for most of us, right? So this is a generational opportunity to really clean up your finances as a whole and have a fresh start.
Yeah.
And we've seen that people, even with the words fresh start, you can see like this sense of relief in a lot of our customers because debt weighs on you.
Oh, absolutely.
Ancillary debt will stress you out.
Yeah.
So we've seen that in several cases. It takes a conversation and an open mind to getting to it another way.
Yeah. No, I love that. And so whether you're a realtor, whether you're a lender, any kind of partner in this industry, in this transaction, it's like diving deep into their life, which it gets personal. And how can we help them?
That's right.
In that way. Yeah.
I had a client that we closed their home in December.
Okay.
And in the consultation, we were talking, they sold their house about a year ago and were living elsewhere. in the meantime, they were looking to buy a home. And at the end of the consultation, we talked about several different strategies on the particular home they're looking at. And at the end of that consultation, I said, is there anything else, any other questions you have, anything else I could provide for you while we're talking today? And she goes, well, I'd love a 4% interest rate, but that's just not going to happen. And the truth is that's actually, it turned out to be possible. And so there are what you're having to reframe a buyer's perspective on how they pay for a house. Okay. So what we're trained to do is we look at the list price. We look at what we purchased the home for. And if that payment feels unaffordable, our brain automatically goes, well, we need to negotiate the price down, right? Let's see what we can get. Could we get it? I can't afford it at $425. Maybe I could get it at $375. What we found is that you could actually go to the seller. If the property has been sitting for a little bit, you've got a motivated seller, you can go to the seller and ask for what's called a seller concession, which is when the seller gives you money towards your closing costs, and you can use that to purchase a lower interest rate. And you can do that permanently or temporarily. But through a temporary buydown, we were able to get this person a rate in the 4s for the first year. And so there are some creative solutions that could move the needle more. But again, it takes an open mind and it takes a consultation, ideally before your heart's racing and you're trying to put an offer in.
Right. Yes.
Yeah.
So it's getting creative with your lender. Let's say you've done the buyer's consult and you're not even, you're 3 weeks out from looking at houses. Yeah, your emotions aren't high. They're not through the roof. You're talking all options.
That's right.
Yeah. So having those, so as a realtor, it's like you need to make sure that if you're, let's say they're in your pipeline and they're 3 months out, get them to the lender, get them having those conversations. Maybe they don't need their pre-approval just yet, but I mean, can you have all of those preliminary conversations and get their mind right and open to these 3 opportunities that they could do?
Absolutely. And then you, as a buyer, you have no idea what that house costs by looking at the list price, because you're not writing a check for it, more than likely.
Most likely.
Right. Yeah. So you need to put a price tag on the houses that you're looking at, which is your monthly mortgage payment, right? So in doing those buyer's consultations, the earlier the better, and then it will open your eyes up to finding the right home. So I think about our house. So Brandy helped us purchase our home back in 2016.
Yes.
And I was a lender at that time, and I was positive, along with everyone that I worked with, that I was overpaying for that house and that we were at the top of
You didn't.
No, obviously not. We know that from 2016, right? But I knew, everybody I worked with knew, like, hey, prices are toppy, and we've had a good run of low interest rates here, but probably overpaying for the house. So it shifted the type of home we're looking for. So some advice that I got from my father-in-law that I now give to everyone on a buyer's consultation is buy the home that's going to meet your needs for the long run. And the period of time, this may be a little dramatic, but for me, because I'm risk averse, that I like is 10 years. And that doesn't mean you have to live there 10 years. But it does mean that could you hold that property for 10 years? Because if you can hold the property for 10 years, make it a rental, whatever, then market cycles really don't matter with home prices. The other thing is, when we shifted the kind of home that we were looking for, we bought a 4-bedroom, 3-bath when it was just me and my wife, 3,200 square feet, basement rancher.
Big house for the 2 of them.
It was ugly. Like avocado green carpet, green walls. You walked.
It needed some, cosmetic updates.
Floral drapes. It was ugly. But that home, we've since remodeled it, and now we're about ready to do it again because things change so quickly. But that home has accommodated our family over the years. So even though that home wasn't the Joanna Gaines home that we wanted, to turn the key on, that home met our family's needs and could meet it forever. We really could never leave and be just fine.
Right.
So I think now more than ever, it's important, again, that buyer's consultation, that partnership between your agent and your lender, to really help shift. These are the kind of properties that you need to look at, and these are the strategies, because that's what we're talking about, buyer's consults.
Yeah.
We're not talking about interest rates and payments. That's part of it, but really it's about offer strategy and explaining to you. The key, though, is that if we can get a seller credit, if we can get the seller to give us some money towards closing costs, we can really help with affordability much more than a price drop.
Yes. And if the seller has put their house on the market, their plan is they've gotten a job in a different state, or, if their house is for sale, they need to sell it. Mm-hmm. And so if it's sitting on the market, as much as they don't want to admit, we know the market shifted, but they're still panicking 14 days later when it's sitting on the market, Mm-hmm. So the buyer goes to the seller and says, hey, let's do a $10,000 seller concession. Yep. They're like, sold, and where 6-8 months ago, that was not an option.
It's been huge. And I love it because it feels like buyers and sellers are working together again to make a deal, mm-hmm. right? Where for a long time, it was a seller's market and the sellers just held all the cards. Yes. They're like, you can take it like it is or somebody else will. Yes. And now with everyone working together to get to the table, so in December, personally had 8 deals close. 4 of them had seller paid buy downs. Okay. Of the 8. Okay. That's how common it is. And that's hard too, because buyers have been in the mindset of a seller's market for so long. And it's like, no, this is possible. Yes. Yeah. And not all of them were crazy amounts of money, but it doesn't always cost a crazy amount. Right. Yeah. To get it down. And so if buyers are trying to understand, like your client, for example, that it was the temporary buy down for the 4%, how much did that cost him, ballpark? This was a pretty good sized one. So this was a temporary, what they call a 3-2-1 buy down. Mm-hmm. And so quickly explaining that, in the first year, your rate is 3% lower than the 30-year fixed rate. Mm-hmm. Second year, 2%, third year, 1%. And then the fourth year and on, it stays at the 30-year fixed rate. So this one was about $24,000. Okay. But the property had been sitting. Yes. And it was one that my buyer really wanted in the area that she really wanted, but the property needed cosmetic love. Just needed to be pretty, right? Yes. There's nothing wrong with the house. The house was a great house in a great area. Or fixtures, that's it. Things, new about all that's doable once you get into it. Absolutely. But if you don't ever buy it, yes, then or you can't get the price down enough. So okay, and I know your face is like $24,000, but that's not a lot of money when it comes to like price a house sitting there, and the seller willing to. And so you ask him for that, and then you meet him somewhere in the middle, and you come up with the difference. It's kind of like it's getting creative. 100%. You will, if you're looking at the market, you'll see price drops far deeper than 25,000. Yes. Right. Yes. And so there is an opportunity. The other thing that we have in our favor is appraisal comps or other sales in the market support the higher values. So the value is supported to pay list price for the house and ask for that concession at times, mm-hmm. right? So there's much more negotiating room now. I think that now is probably, and really over the last year, I've said the same thing. I don't think it's any less true today than it has been over the last 12 months. It's the best time to buy the house. Like the really cool house in the really cool neighborhood, or the house that you want in the right neighborhood. You just have less people competing for it. Mm-hmm. And as soon as rates come down and affordability gets easier, you're going to have more people competing for those same houses. And it's going to be really hard to get like the A+ level of the market. Yeah. Is there a term for that in real estate? A-class home, Yeah. You have commercial office space that's classed out. But no, I mean, like you're number one pick, okay? If you're just going to rate them, right? Number 1, number 2, number 3. Oh, if I could get this house, like your number one pick. So what Corey's saying is, if you're a buyer and you are pumping the brakes, like you need to get in the market. If you're an investor and you're not in it, these rates aren't going to, now, you've got to get creative because,
the numbers sometimes don't make sense when you're up into the 7% and things like that. And investment properties are, more percentage down and all that. But if you are a buyer, homeowner, and you are pumping the brakes, like, you need to get in the market before these interest rates drop.
Absolutely. And I think even if you don't know you're a buyer yet, and I'll tell you how I know that, like, if you're looking at houses right now on Zillow and Realtor.com, or you're on a drip campaign, if you've got a realtor sending you listings and you're like, we're not really in the market, we're just looking, you're a buyer. You want to buy a house. Mm-hmm. If your current home doesn't fit your needs, or you're wanting to move, reach out and talk to us. Give Brandy a call. Have her come out, look at the house. It doesn't cost anything to have a listing consultation and see what the house might bring.
Yeah.
Give us a call at Fairway.
Yeah.
It doesn't cost you anything. And we'll take a look at your full financial picture.
If you're renting,
100%. If you have any inkling that you're like, man, I'm just not happy where I live.
Yeah.
You don't have to be. And there's no cost, there's no high pressure sales pitch. It's just a conversation of, here's what your financial picture is, what's your target payment, how can we get you there?
Yeah.
I would say 8 in 10 of the people that I talk to in buyer's consultations are surprised by how affordable it can be.
Right.
Online calculators are wrong. They don't understand East Tennessee.
That's true.
I just had this conversation with a prospective buyer last week. Online calculators use percentages for insurance and taxes, and their nationwide averages. Mm-hmm. And so they're going to throw that into the payment. You're going to look at either the estimated payment on Zillow or estimated payment on whatever website you're using, and it's not correct.
Based on, how cheap it is to live here versus California, Florida, Illinois, wherever. Right. Yeah, and Corey's right, and no obligation, because, you call one of us out, we have these conversations, and it's not affordable now. Okay, that's fine. Like, we will, how do we help you to where we can get it affordable? And like some of the options we talked about, consulting debt or whatever that it is.
That's right.
So it's not that it's a no, it's a no for now, and how do we get there to make it a yes?
Yeah, there are so many options in the market, and again, waiting on interest rates to drop or home prices to fall is just not a strategy. It's just not a plan to get you where you need to be. You don't want to be at the whims of the market, right? You want to make your own market, and that's what we're doing. Is we're coming together and we're saying, here's what we can get out of your house. Or you're renting, here's what we could get you into a house for. Just from my personal experience, if you are a renter, owning real estate has completely changed my family tree. And we're not speculators and heavy investors. We're just people, right? My grandfather worked for UPS. Mason-Dixon at the time was purchased by UPS. He bought a condo in Knoxville upon retirement so that he could split time between Knoxville and Kingsport.
Okay.
And his home that's paid off in Kingsport and his condo that's now paid off are the majority of his net worth, and it's substantial. Mm-hmm. And it was all, at the time, small, low-risk decisions where a mechanic has started to change the family tree of everyone downline, right?
Yeah.
And so seeing the same, my parents helped with my college off of their HELOC, their home equity line of credit. That was equity that they had in a home that they owned. If they weren't homeowners, it would have been really hard for me to go to school.
You had student debt.
And then saddled with it for years. Mm-hmm. And so the same thing, I've seen the same thing happen in my own personal life, where buying real estate when I was sure it was overpriced, by the way, when I was sure it was overpriced, I put 5% down. It was everything I had. It was all I had. We financed the repairs. For some reason, I thought I was like handy, and we financed our upgrades through 6 months, same as cash credit cards and an unsecured loan, all responsibly and within our debt to income tolerances. But we didn't have, but that 5% that we put down has turned into hundreds of thousands of dollars in equity over the years. And it just wouldn't have been possible as a renter. just would have been possible.
Yeah.
You know?
So we're calling all renters.
Yeah. I mean, the best, it is the single best financial decision I've made in my life.
Me too. And I look back, I think about it from a realtor perspective. Gosh, if I wouldn't have waited to my 30s to get into real estate, you know. But even not being in it, helping others, you know, I've gone into investing in the last couple of years, and I wish I would have done that sooner. Yet homeowner, I mean, I bought my first house at 20.
Yeah.
And so little $80,000 house, but I mean, you know, you look back and it's like, well, I could have rented for 10 years, you know, before. And so equity grew, however many houses later. And then here we are. So it's it's never too late. It's just start.
I'm going to be a little dramatic again, but not me. Look, affordability is a huge problem. It's an enormous problem. And I don't think we should downplay that. You know, you can say that interest rates are historically average. Fine. Home prices are not, right? Home prices have gone way up. And so back when interest rates were in the 6s, 7s, 8s, even 10 to 18 at times, home prices were lower, right? So home prices compared to incomes, we have seen a gap there. My fear is, that's the genuine fear, for thousands of years, the rich and the poor were separated by who owned the land, right? That was how you knew who was wealthy and who was not. It's the landowners and then not. And it's a recent phenomenon that we get to participate in this through zero money down government loans, 3.5%, 3%, 5% down mortgages to get people in sooner and younger. Mm-hmm. That's a recent phenomenon, and it's not guaranteed to be around forever, right?
Yeah.
So the longer, my fear for those who are waiting for very legitimate reasons, I'm not delegitimizing the reasons for waiting because affordability is a problem. My fear is that it just might not get within grasp if we don't put together a plan to get there, right?
Yeah.
You have to formulate a plan or it'll never happen.
Right. And so your fear is that gap will just, for the generation that should be homeowners now and can't afford it, it's like, how do we close that gap?
Yeah.
As lenders, realtors, anybody in the industry, how do we help close that gap?
Yeah. I'm a big believer in social mobility. I'm from Loudoun County, Tennessee. And, social mobility is near and dear to my heart. It's important to me that people are able to accomplish whatever it is that they want to set out and do in life. Mm-hmm. Real estate made that happen for me, right? And so I just want to encourage people to reach out. Let's take a look at everything together, and let's put together a plan to get there, because I don't know of a tool that builds wealth better than leveraged real estate. By leveraged, I mean the fact that you can put 5% down on an asset that's worth, $200,000, $300,000.
Right.
So that's kind of where my heart's at. Is social mobility is super important. It's been a game changer for my family. As the tree grows, whatever. My daughter turned 7 today. It's Evelyn's birthday.
Happy birthday, Evelyn.
Yeah.
If she watches this later.
Yeah. When she's. And
she's scrolling YouTube later.
Yeah, right. I have a fear for my kids that without my help, I don't know that they're going to be able to buy a house.
Mm-hmm. And I think a lot of parents that are, helping this generation of new homeowners, it's a legit thing. It's like if you can't pass down and help that legacy grow, where the affordability when we were in our 20s is completely different. Completely different. So cost of living is just skyrocketed in the last, 4 to 5 years. So
that's right. And the thing about that, Brandy, too, is so inflation's a big buzzword, right? Mm-hmm. And inflation is coming down. So inflation peaked around 9%, and now we're trending in the 4s, which is good.
Good.
But the way that's measured is that's 9% growth on a year-over-year basis. Now it's 4% growth, but things didn't get cheaper.
No.
Right?
No.
So that's the problem with inflation, is it compounds. Things just continue to get more expensive. So we're not going to get that back.
No.
We may have price appreciation has slowed, maybe, the eggs cost a little, don't cost as much more, right, as this month as they did last month, but their prices are coming back down.
Right.
So that is the urgency. That is the call to say, if you're a renter or if you're looking to make a step up move, just reach out.
Reach out. Let's find a plan. The answer may be no now, but it's what do we need to get there? And is it taking 6 months, to make those adjustments? And your answer is yes in 6 months versus just never reaching out and not knowing.
Yeah. And again, I think I credit you a lot for the decision we made on our house, because you were knowledgeable. You'd renovated several homes by that time and you knew what you were doing, and now you've done even more.
Just do it.
So you knew walking into that house what it could be, right? And
that you could double your value.
That's right.
Yeah.
Yeah. She knew the neighborhood. She knew the size of the house, and she knew that with enough time and effort, because she's been to it herself, what you could make that house. So we got really good advice on the purchase, which again was just a total life changer for us in the long run. So having good expertise in your realtor is really important. Having someone that knows and has done this kind of work with their hands, I think, is really important.
And I think on the flip side, on the lending, somebody that's going to dive in and is passionate about this as you and your team are, that like no doesn't stop you. That's not it, and you won't hear from Corey again.
That's right.
His team again. It's like no, and how are we going to get you there?
Yeah.
What's the plan? Like it's going to be a yes. We're going to get you into a house, but just what do we need to do to get you there? That's and right. Can you make these decisions to get there? So Corey, thanks so much for coming on and just talking real estate today. It's been fun. I mean, I think if you guys have learned anything today, it's like just start. Just take that first step.
That's right. Yeah, it's not scary. I've thought about changing my term for application to questionnaire, because there's a reason they go and talk to a realtor before they talk to lenders, because nobody likes to. A lot of people don't like having that money conversation, but it's totally comfortable. And we do everything we can to make sure that you're informed, equipped, and that you're ready to go make a good buying decision.
Awesome.
Yeah.
Thanks, Corey.
Thank you
guys for tuning in.